and whispered, "It will be a long winter." Immediately the smiths around Tal Rimmon went to work, forging swords and warhammers, shields and armor for man and horse. The Marquis Brunhurst and the other local lords all rode back to the castle early from the autumn hunt. In the Marquis's great hall they argued for long hours about the portent of dispatches, the dark tidings of sorcerous attacks, of the movements of enemy troops, of Duke Paldane's call to prepare for battle. Few children noticed. As yet their joy was undiminished. But on that day it seemed a shift in the air brought an indefinable sense of urgency and excitement. All week long, the young men of Tal Rimmon had been preparing for the tournaments that accompanied the end of Hostenfest, but now the boys who prepared to fight suddenly had a feral gleam in their eyes, and at midweek, when the first rounds began, those who jousted or took part in mock combat attacked their opponents with abnormal ferocity. For now they did not seek to win honor only among themselves, but fought for the right to someday ride into battle with the Earth King himself. The Marquis noted the change, and when he told his lords time and again, "It is a good crop this year, the best I've ever seen," he was not speaking of apples. At midweek, the skies darkened, and an afternoon thunderstorm flashed above Tal Rimmon and shook the city. Many of the local children huddled abed with their mothers and fathers safe beneath their quilts. That night 500 powerful Runelords rode from the east, answering Duke Paldane's summons to defend Caris, the largest castle in western Mystaria. For the latest reports said that the Wolf Lord, who had been retreating toward his homeland in Indhopal, had suddenly struck south toward the heart of Mystaria. The Marquis Brunhurst could not sleep with so many lords with his troops, so he had many of them wait out the storm in his great hall or in the hostels just outside the castle proper. There the lords and knights argued long and forcefully about how to repel the impending invasion. Raj Ahten's troops had taken 3 border fortresses already. Worse, he had taken endowments from perhaps 20,000 people. He had taken to himself their strength, wit, stamina, and grace, turning himself into such a fierce warrior that none could best him in battle. He sought to become the sum of all men, a being that old stories said would be immortal. Some feared even now that he could not be killed. Worse, he had taken so many endowments of glamour that his beauty outshone the sun. Hundreds of miles north in Herodon, when his troops besieged Castle Silveresta, King Silveresta's people had taken one look at Raj Ahten's face and thrown their weapons over the castle walls, welcoming him as their new lord. And at Longmont it was said that Raj Ahten had used the tremendous power of his voice to shatter the stone of the castle walls, as a songmaster might shatter crystal. It was nearly dawn when Raj Ahten struck Tal Rimmon. He came pulling a handcart filled with onions, a battered cloak pulled low over his forehead to keep out the night's rain. The guards at the castle gates paid him little notice, for other peasants had also brought their carts to the gates. They stood sheltered from the rain beneath the eaves of a weaver's shop. Raj Ahten began to sing a song that was not words, but instead a low, throaty moan of incredible volume, a sound that made the stone walls of Tal Rimmon hum at first, and then made the bones of a man's inner ear vibrate as if a hornet were trapped within his skull. The gatekeepers swore and drew weapons. The few farmers near Raj Ahten grasped their heads in pain as his song began to slowly shatter their skulls. They dropped unconscious before they died. Within seconds, the stone of Tal Rimmon's towers began to shiver violently. Bits of stone flaked away as if artillery battered the walls. In moments, the castle's battlements trembled, heaved, and then toppled, as if struck by a mighty fist. Raj Ahten stood in his ragged cloak and lifted his voice high until the Marquis